guys, what's going on? It's Ash here coming at you today in Clash Royale. Today I have Boss on the channel. What's up, Boss? How you doing up there?
What's up, Ash? I'm doing great. Thanks again for having me on.
Hey, it's a pleasure, man, as always. How are things going in the life of Boss, man? Your YouTube channel, your Twitch stream, your Clash Royale skills seem to be better than ever. All of those. Yeah,
it's been going great. Just had a lot of time to play recently. That might change, though, because I'm going back to school next month online, but we'll see. Yeah,
in today's video, I'm really excited for it. We're going to be covering the top 20 decks, top 10 ladder, top 10 in grand challenges by win percentage. And you're going to be giving a power ranking on each of these decks and a skill ranking, like what is the skill level required to play these decks on each of the decks as well. Viewers, let me know. Do you like this idea? Is this something that you want to see more of? A regular series here on the channel. I love stuff like this personally. So, Boss, I'm excited, man. Real quick though, are you in CRL East next season?
Yes, I am.
Congratulations, bro. Are you excited?
Yeah, I am. I mean, I'm a little, obviously a little nervous. The matches start in, a little over a week, but
whoa.
I think, me and my team are ready. We've been practicing quite a bit, and it's going to be exciting. It's my first season, so it's just going to be great to experience it. And then it's one of the only online seasons we've ever had to.
Yeah, so it's a perfect opportunity for someone like you who's busy with school and stuff and otherwise probably wouldn't have been able to travel, certainly not to Asia, to play.
Yeah, exactly.
My last question is just give us a rundown of your team real quick.
We have Famous Kid on the team. He's from Singapore.
Yep.
I talk to him a lot because he's fluent in English and Chinese. But then we have Nuomichi and Hui, who mostly only speak Chinese, but I still talk to them quite a bit.
Nuomichi's really good too.
Yeah.
He was with what, Gen G or something?
WEGM. I don't know if that's the name of the team, but they made it to the finals.
Edge.
They were versus Liquid at the World Finals.
Yep. Awesome, man. Well, Edward Gaming and Edge is he's great. So anyway, let's go into this. My bad, guys. Sorry, my audience is like, dude, get to the decks, bro. All right, so here we go. Let's start with ladder, man. Let's start with the very #1 deck in the game right now. A lot of people gave me crap, Boss, because when I ranked all the cards in the game, I put Three Musketeers as A tier. First of all, do you agree with that ranking? And then what do you think of this deck?
I think right now, Three Musketeers, I would either put them in A or B tier. They just seem to, the last couple metas, been pretty solid. We've seen them a lot more than we did the last few months after that deploy time nerf. They've just kind of seemed to come back because they got, I think, a staggered deploy. Then they were made 2 seconds. And this deck, personally, I think is solid. There's a couple of variations of it. You can use it with Fireball. Some people use it with the small spell, like in this case, Barbell, but I think it's a good deck. It's one that doesn't have too many bad matchups, but it doesn't really counter anything. It's kind of...
Sure.
It's a deck where if you play well.
So on the Three Musketeer deck, then, what do you think you would rank it in terms of power ranking from like 1 to 5?
I'd say I'd give it a 3 or 4. It's not, I feel like, the type of deck that you would consider really OP, absolutely, dominating, because it's one that you definitely do have to play quite well, but it doesn't have many bad matchups if you do play it correctly.
Okay, and what do you think about skill cap 1 to 5? 5 being it takes a ton of skill, 1 being it's very easy.
I think it's kind of average in terms of skill, probably 3 or 4.
Anything that players need to know about this deck before taking it into the arena? Like a quick tip or... pretty self-explanatory?
Well, I wouldn't 3M first play. Personally, I like using 3M Royal Hogs a decent amount, and I think one of the best plays is Bandit in the back. In this case, this deck is Bandit. You could go Royal Hogs at the bridge and then 3M in response to what they play.
Okay.
It's fine as well.
Okay, great. Next deck is PEKKA Bridge Spam, the classic version with the Royal Ghost, who is in 2 of the top 3 decks. And that's unbelievable because one of the worst cards in the game, in my opinion. Where's legendary cards? Caveat. Anyway, what do you think about the PEKKA Bridge Spam? It is a classic, man. In terms of power ranking right now, where do you see PEKKA Bridge Spam?
Right now, I don't see a ton of PEKKA. I can't say it's like a 1, but, maybe 2, 3. It seems to be kind of average, a little below average now. And specifically this deck with minions, I don't see a ton of it right now. I see mostly the variant with Magic Archer, but yeah, I imagine minions are probably in it because they're common, so easier to level up.
Yeah.
But I think overall this deck right now isn't in a great spot because Fisherman just seems to do so good against PEKKA decks.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. And minions, Magic Archer would be subbed in for minions. Also, we should mention here that some of you might be asking, okay, so why is he ranking them a 2 or a 3 or whatever in power ranking if they're the number 1 and number 2 decks in the game? Keep in mind here that this is all of Legendary Arena, which is, millions of players. So I think that Boss is also looking at it from a pro player's perspective and from a top ladder's perspective. So just kind of take that into consideration, guys, when you're watching this video. And skill cap on PEKKA Burst Spam?
I think that is fairly average too. I think some people consider it a very low skill deck, which I don't understand because there's a lot of ins and outs of it you need to know.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it definitely isn't one of the hardest things to play. So I would give it probably a 3. Just
okay.
Average.
So pretty average altogether on PEKKA Bridge Spam. Classic log bait. The classic, actually not the classic because this one has the Tesla instead of the Inferno Tower. What do you think about the state of log bait right now, man?
It's weird because it always seems to change a lot. Every few months or sometimes where it's just horrible, and then there's other times where it's really good. I think there was someone last season who finished top 5 with log bait, so it really goes to show if you know how to play it really well, you can have success with it. But at the same time, it's definitely not seen as much as it used to be. So right now, it's kind of below average, I would say.
Okay, so power ranking, what, like a 2?
Probably a 2. I would say that's accurate.
Okay, we're going to talk about more bait decks as we go along, but what do you think about this bait deck with the Tesla versus the Inferno? And what do you think about this bait deck with these cards as compared to the Skeleton Barrel version?
I see more of, it's weird because this variant, it's used a lot more in ladder and the Inferno one, and then in competitive you see double barrel bait. Yeah. So I think for ladder, for whatever reason, Inferno or Tesla are better, this specific variant. And I guess that's just because there's a lot of Royal Giant decks right now on ladder, and this variant or the same thing with Inferno does pretty good against them. And there's also probably players who see a lot of Golem, especially depending on the trophy range you're at. So I think this variant is probably better depending on your trophy range. But then I think top 200, it would be
double barrel.
Yeah.
What do you think a skill cap on log bait is?
Now that is going to be on the higher end. I would say probably 4. If you're saying it, out of 5, out of 10, maybe 8. And that's just because, you need to keep track of cycle. It's very important. You need to outcycle their, bait counters. And you can get a lot of value out of princess. I feel like you need to know the princess placements. You need to make sure to remember those. And then, making sure to switch up your Goblin Barrel placement. I feel like there's a lot of, ins and outs of it you need to know. Also, when you're able to rocket cycle without getting punished.
Sure, absolutely. No, I agree with you, and I see a lot of people kind of, occasionally hating on log bait, but then every pro I pretty much ask says it's one of the higher skill caps, not the highest, but up in the, in the above average. Let's move on to Golem, man. So give us Golem power ranking, and then this deck specifically with the bomber in there.
Bomber one is interesting. I've seen it quite a bit, and there's a couple different variants. Sometimes it has Tornado, but this Golem Bomber deck definitely is solid. I think this is the type of Golem deck where you can Golem first play because it has Night Witch and Bomber in it. And I mean, I think in terms of power ranking, maybe 3 or 4, although Golem has been struggling a bit because there has been, I don't know, a lot of fishermen. So I guess I'd have to say 3 just because of all the fishermen.
Okay. And skill cap?
Some Golem decks, for example, the Lumberjack one, I think takes a little bit more skill. But this one, the reason why I'm going to put it at a 2 is because with this Golem deck, you're able to Golem first play and you can get away with it almost all the time because of you have the Bomber, the Night Witch. So it's kind of a Golem first play type of deck.
I love it, man. I love it. You're speaking my language with a 4 power ranking and a 2 skill cap. That's right in my wheelhouse, dude. All right, let's move it on to the next one. It is Balloon Miner Cycle with the Bomb Tower in there as well. What do you think about this deck?
This deck was very popular before the Bomb Tower nerf. I remember seeing it, every 3 games or something like that. But now it's been toned down a bit because Bomb Tower did get a small nerf, but it's still solid. I sometimes see the same deck with Goblin Cage. I think both work okay. And in terms of power ranking, I think if it's a good player's playing it, like a cycle player, I think it could be a 4 if you out of 5 if you know how to use it correctly. The skill cap of this, I'm gonna kind of go with the the log bait one. I don't know if it's higher skill than log bait, but it's definitely high up there, like a 4.
Yeah.
Because you gotta keep track of what your opponent has for the balloon, and even though a lot of people say bomb tower is really strong, makes the defense easy, it isn't always easy defending big pushes with such little elixir, and you have to kite things, spread things out like bomb tower musketeers so they don't get spell value. There's just, I think, a lot of interactions you have to know with this kind of deck.
Sure, I agree. This is a deck that I would not personally touch for those reasons. So you're giving it a power ranking of a 4 and a skill ranking of 4 as well?
Maybe even 4.5. It's definitely up there.
All right. Let's move on to maybe a little bit of a lower skill rank miner deck here with Lava Loon Miner with skeleton dragons as well. This is the highest Lava Hound deck on the win percentage on ladder here, boss. What do you think about this deck skill and power ranking?
I'm gonna have to give for power ranking a 4. It was pretty good last meta. I saw it a lot on ladder. For like skill, it's a 1 or 2. In my opinion, this is even easier to play than Golem.
Wow.
Because if you have lava in your starting hand, basically the rule of lava, almost any lava deck you have, you're supposed to lava first play, and then you just kind of see what your opponent does. If they rush you, you just play barbarians, and then if they play something on your lava, you play skeleton dragons or inferno drag, and then you just miner or play a balloon behind it. It's just, I think it's really kind of basic and easy to learn.
Are you just talk a little bit about the miner synergy in this deck? Like, would you rather have a lava miner push or would you rather have a lava loon push? Because traditionally, we saw lava loon and then we saw lava miner, and this has all 3. Are you using all 3 together in double elixir time mostly?
You don't always use all 3 together. What you sometimes do is you might go for a lava miner and then in the opposite lane play a balloon, because they'll often play their air counters on the lava hound.
Okay.
I think it just depends on what air counters they have in cycle.
Yeah. If they have like a musketeer or something or a Ewiz, you can also assassinate with the miner and then let the balloon.
That's also the way you want to be using the miner.
Okay.
That's definitely one of the keys.
Okay, so you gave it a 4 and a 1 or a 2?
Yeah.
Okay.
I guess like 1.5 is fine.
This is PEKKA Bridge Spam just with Dark Prince. Out of the 3 PEKKA Bridge Spam decks, we've already talked about the skill cap and stuff. Which one is your favorite? The Magic Archer, the 10th?
I think the Magic Archer probably would be, just because I really like having Magic Archer if I was playing PEKKA, because there's some matchups where it's really difficult to get the battle ram to break through. Mm-hmm. And sometimes you really need the Magic Archer to kind of serve as a secondary win condition and chip jump something from across the bridge and get a few hundred damage that way. It's just very helpful, I feel like.
Okay, cool. And then we have I like the Dark Prince over the Royal Ghost as well. Do you prefer that as well or no?
I think both work, but I might prefer Ghost a little more just because it's cheaper, and I think its invisibility, even though sometimes it doesn't mean much, but
it always has to be,
it's kind of good to play in front of battle rams. That's like another, I guess, kind of tip with the deck. You want to play you want to play your Ghost in front of the battle ram, not behind it. That's something that's important.
Okay.
I guess that's where the invisibility kind of plays a part.
Sure. Ghost. Let's talk about the Golem, the number 9 deck. This is a Golem without Bomber. It has the Goblin Cage in it as well. It has like a way stronger, defense compared to the other Golem deck. Actually, they're both really strong, but this has the classic Ice Wiz NATO and the Goblin Cage and Lightning Bar Barrel. Which Golem deck do you prefer?
I honestly prefer this one. But the thing is, though, it is a little harder to play. So the one before, I forgot what I gave it. I think I gave it a 2.
2, yep.
This one, I definitely would give at least a 3, maybe even a 3.5, because this is the type of Golem deck where you're not just Goleming first play. You need to be very patient. You want to actually wait until your opponent makes a play, and then maybe they do something, so you Ice Wizard or your Goblin Cage, and then when you get to double, that's when you start going in for Golem pushes. But it's harder to play because it's definitely more it's a way more defensive deck, as you said. You have the Tornado, Ice Wizard, the Goblin Cage, so you're focusing a lot more on defense instead of offense in a lot of matchups, which is the main difference from the other Golem deck.
Sounds good, man. Last but not least, we have Expo.
I think if I remember last season, it was Arda who finished 36th global with 2.9. It's not in an amazing spot right now. There's definitely less people playing it, but it's the type of deck that if you play it well, you can just beat most things with it.
Yeah.
And this is, a lot of people aren't gonna, like me saying this because a lot of people don't like Expo, but it's one of the hardest things to play.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. I think that we had Vulcan on the channel ranking every deck by skill cap, and I want to say he put 2.9 as the second hardest deck. Maybe it could have been number 3 in the game. So he definitely agrees with you there. And we're talking about playing these decks at a high skill. Anybody can pick up a deck. Let's go ahead and move on. So you said effective power ranking on the Expo, you would say is like a 3 or 4, or am I lower?
Right now,
yeah,
I would say probably a 3, especially, Log did get a small nerf, still viable, but that is, in the deck. So 2.5, 3 as of right now for the power ranking, because it really is one that you need to play quite well to have the best success with it.
Okay, sounds good. Let's go ahead and skill cap. You put it at
4.5, could even be 5, because it's one of the decks that I personally have one of the hardest times with. I tend to make a lot of mistakes with it when I play it. It's not easy if you aren't used to using Expo.
Sure, totally agree.
What are you doing? Are you trying to get fired?
All right, let's move over to the Grand Challenge side. All right, so on to the Grand Challenge side of things. Giant Sparky is the #1 deck with XC NATO, dude. I don't even know. I haven't even seen this deck, but what do you think about Giant Sparky?
So the Giant Sparky's solid. There's, I think, Agony King who is using it on ladder, and he seems to always be, relatively high up in it. It's a good deck, but again with the XC, I haven't seen it really much with the Executioner. I haven't tried that out yet, but it's definitely a good deck. I think the NATO synergizes well with the Sparky. Obviously, Heal Spirit's one of the best cards in the game right now. It's
you can see it.
I can see that very clearly.
But yeah, I don't know about the Executioner.
Okay, so power and skill.
Power 4 probably. And skill, probably 2. I think it's pretty easy to pick up and use.
Okay. Next one is the Royal Giant deck that has been around for all 2 seasons now, since the Fisherman got a buff, and the Fisherman synergy with Hunter has been tremendous. This is the Skeleton Dragons version of this deck. What do you think in terms of power on this one?
I'd actually give it a 5 because it's one of the best decks in the game right now, not only on ladder but in competitive. A lot of people were using it on ladder last season, and if you look at the deck, nothing in it got nerfed. Skeleton Dragons, Fisherman, RG, Heal Spirit didn't get nerfed. Log did. That's why people are subbing in Barbell for the Log, but Log still works in my opinion in the deck. So right now it's easily one of the best decks in the whole game.
Okay, makes sense. Let's go to the skill cap on that one. My bad.
It's probably 2.5, 3.
Okay. I like this deck too. I don't normally play Royal Giant, but I do find this one incredibly fun and effective compared to other Royal Giant decks to play. A Giant Skeleton Fisherman Hunter Balloon deck. What do you think about this one? Power ranking.
I like this deck. I see it quite a bit in the meta. I think 3.5, 4. There's a lot of just, Giant Skelly Fisherman Balloon decks. I've seen a couple different variants, and this one looks solid, like it would be good in the meta.
We've seen a lot of look at the Skeleton Dragons. It's in 1, 2, 3, 4, and there was one above too. 5 of these decks. So Skeleton Dragon are definitely making a comeback in a big way. We didn't see him too much last season, here and there, I guess. What about skill on this one? A deck like this?
It probably is around the same as the last one. I think it's
2 or 3.
2 to 3.
We see Royal Recruits, boss. What? All right, so what do you think about Royal Recruits in general? I have to ask, and then what do you think about the power ranking of this specific deck?
I think the Royal Recruits right now are, before they were one of the worst cards. And now I think I would even consider them to be above average. I don't know if they're one of the best. They're definitely not broken, but they're above average, and they actually fit in decks right now. I've seen them in some balloon decks. There's that Barbarian Hut Recruits deck again, that really toxic deck.
Yeah, we shared that yesterday on the channel, boss. Cool. So what do you think about the overall effectiveness of this deck? It's interesting.
I haven't seen this one too much, and the Miner did get a tower nerf, damage to tower nerf, but I think it could work I haven't tested it out personally.
It's got a lot of
looks
spell bait in there
like,
with the
looks
magic
just kinda
archer.
like a minor poison control deck where you're getting just chip on your opponent's tower with, you know, all these different cards in the deck. So looks like it could work.
It's an interesting one. I like that it has Muskie in there and Magic Archer for Fireball bait or Poison bait, and the Royal Recruits for Poison bait. What do you think about the skill cap on the deck like this?
Maybe a 3, because even though Royal Recruits aren't really, you know, they're fairly easy to use, a lot of the other cards in the deck, like the Fisherman, you know, minor poison overall isn't really something easy to play.
Magic Archer, yeah. There's definitely some.
Maybe even 3.5, I would say.
Okay. This is the deck that has the most grand challenges. One on it, this next one here, and that is Goblin Giant with Sparky with the Rage. What do you think about this one?
Ooh, well, personally, I like using a Goblin Giant Sparky. It's one of my favorite archetypes.
Yeah.
And personally, I like using the variant with Dark Prince and Minions, but I think this one's more popular. Skeleton Dragons might be better right now than Minions and Sparky, and that's probably because of the delivery getting the knockback nerf.
That's true.
That would be my guess as to why Skeleton Dragons are really popular right now. But I think it's a solid deck. Power level, I guess, 4, and it's overall like the skill cap, you know, probably 2. I don't think it's too difficult to run.
Yeah, when we see that Rage in there, we automatically brings it down a point in the skill cap. I love it. All right, so the next one is Graveyard. We haven't seen any Bowler or Splash Yard on either of these lists here, but we do see very, very classic Splash Yard, I guess, with the Bomb Tower added in. What do you think about this particular version of Graveyard in terms of power index?
Yeah, it's a solid Graveyard deck. There's a lot of different Graveyard decks. You know, there are Bowler Graveyard decks right now, but I guess not on the list. And then there's this same deck, but with Tornado, I think, and Ice Wizard. But this specific variant, I think, is definitely pretty good, but I don't know if I'd put it at, you know, the best Graveyard deck right now. But I think it's good, and it's the type of deck that doesn't have too many matchups, and Bomb Tower is still one of the best buildings, in my opinion, even after the nerf it got. So
okay.
Maybe power level 3.5.
Okay, and skill cap on Splash on old school. I guess you call it Splash Yard, but it's interesting. No NATO too, I guess, because of Bomb Tower. But what do you think the skill on this one would be?
I think if it had Tornado, it would be a 3. But because it doesn't even have Tornado, maybe like 2.5.
So like a nice entry level Graveyard deck for folks out there, right?
Yeah, it's probably a bit easier to learn. A little easier for sure than the Tornado one.
Okay, and the next one here is a Mega Knight Royal Hogs deck. I've seen this deck going around a bit, and I like this one actually. What do you think about this deck?
Yeah, I mean, I do too. I've seen it a lot. I think there's some variants that have the Fisherman in it, maybe instead of the Bar Barrel or instead of something. I'm not sure, but Royal Hogs, Skeleton Dragons decks overall right now with those two combined and Heal Spirit seem to be really strong right now. Some even have Recruits. So there's a Recruits Royal Hog Skeleton Dragon deck. Overall, like Royal Hogs seem like they're going to be in a pretty good spot this season.
Yeah, a lot of people obviously shocked at the no Heal Spirit nerf. You can see in like almost every deck here as well. What do you think about in terms of power and skill on this one?
Probably 3.5, 4. I think it's good in this meta, and skill it would be about average. You know, maybe a 3.
All right, like it. I like that there's not a lot of high skill cap decks. I think that's probably a bad sign for the game, though. It's a low skill meta. Let's go on to the next one. It's Royal. It's the classic. Well, I guess it's not the classic because that's Fisherman in there too, but it's Royal Giant and Mega Knight. I think Little Chen was the first guy I saw play this in CRL China like a year and a half ago or whatever. But what do you think about these decks, man? With like sometimes Giant Skeleton, sometimes now Mega Knight, paired with the Royal Giant and kind of a baity, weird swarm deck.
Well, I'm actually glad we, I guess, got something like this. It's a little bit, weird and unique. Not something you would see normally every game. I guess that's why it's good in grand challenges and competitive, because this is not something typically you'd expect your opponent to run. I think that's why it's a good competitive deck. I don't know if it's insanely strong. I just think it's the type of deck to
surprise factor.
Yeah, the surprise factor.
I guess because of the surprise factor, you want to give it like a 3.5, 4? Or is that being too generous?
Because usually when someone's running something that people aren't expecting, it tends to work. So maybe you could give it a 4.
Okay, sounds good. And on a deck like this, like how do you kind of run the Mega Knight and the Royal Giant together in it? What are you focusing mainly on with a deck like this?
Well, you probably start the game off fairly passively, just till you figure out what your opponent has. You know, Princess in the back, and then Barrel, and then Mega Knight on defense, and then depending on what they do, you could Royal Giant in the opposite lane. You probably don't want to play both the RG and the Mega Knight, in one offensive push because you're overcommitting. You probably want to just do one or the other, and then if you do both, one would have to be in the opposite lane of the other one. That's probably my guess of how you would play it.
Makes sense, man. And then the last two decks we kind of covered already here, 3 Musketeers and another Goblin Giant Sparky deck. So we will I guess 3 Musketeers, do you like the Fisherman version better in 3 Musketeers, or do you like just having, a Royal Ghost Dark Prince or whatever? Well, this does have Royal Ghost, but yeah.
I tried out this Fisherman one, and I like it. I think
Me too.
Fisherman kind of pairs well with the 3 Musketeers deck. I'm not sure if it's necessarily better than the one without it, but it definitely works, because you get the King activation. You can pull things away from the Royal Hogs potentially, just pull things in the other lane. I think it's a good deck. Synergizes well with the 3M.
Me too. Basically, any 3M that has Hunter in it, I would prefer to run Fisherman as well. But some people also run this with Skeletons, I think, instead of Bar Barrel, or instead of something else, maybe Ice Golem, just so they have that kind of synergy between Fisherman and Skeletons as well to kind of protect. But I guess you could do that even with the Ice Golem as well. Anyway, I'm kind of rambling here. Boss, I think that's going to go through it then. We did the 20 decks, and out of all 20 of these decks, which is your favorite? If you had to win one match right now, which would you pick?
Well, I guess I would go with...
There was no Giant Miner or anything for you, man.
True. I guess right now it would be probably the Royal Giant deck, because that's what I used last season on ladder.
And that was the only one you gave a 5 to, power ranking.
Yeah, it's just so good in the meta. I guess maybe I'm a little biased, but that's why I like it. I got last season I got 28th with it, but there was a couple people who finished higher than me.
Well done.
And there's a ton of mirror matchups too when I was using it. It seems to be really good in this meta.
All right. Well, sounds good. The Royal Giant takes the cake, and I should mention as a disclaimer, guys, these are just our opinions, mostly Boss's opinions. So, of course, there's some subjectivity here, obviously. So go with the deck that you're performing. Everybody has archetypes that they do better with than others, but I thought this would just be fun to do, maybe once per season, once per month. Have a guest come on here. I think that Boss did a tremendous job kind of breaking down these decks and give them some, skill and power ranking for you guys to think about before you select these decks. By the way, these are all kind of aggregated from Stats Royale. If you want to check out the deck links to any of these decks, just go to statsroyale.com, go to the popular decks, and then sort by win percentages in grand challenges or in ladder. Boss, any final thoughts? Any final words, man?
None that I can think of.
All right, sounds good. Guys, check out Boss's Twitch and his YouTube channel. I'll have that linked in the show notes below for you guys. Also, toss Boss a follow here on Twitter. Support this guy. He puts out a ton of content, all great stuff, as you can see from this video. So, Boss, thanks again, man. Appreciate it.
Thanks again, Ash, for having me.
No problem. Good luck in CRL East.
Thank you.
No problem. All right, guys, that's going to do it. Shout out to guys who are into Bren Chong, my YouTube partners. Their information will also be listed in the show notes below. Thank you for watching, and as always, take care, guys.
How far can we get if we sail?